Back down isn't the same as losing, and most people get that confused when they're picking a dog for protection. A dog that retreats from a fight isn't necessarily a coward. Sometimes it's making a smart call. The breeds on this list don't make that call. They're built, by history and by genetics, to hold ground regardless of the odds. And that's a very different temperament than aggressive or scary. It's closer to stubborn in the most literal, bone-deep sense of the word. I think that distinction matters, because half the breeds people assume are the toughest are actually just intimidating-looking dogs that'll disengage the moment things get uncomfortable. These 10 won't. The American Pit Bull Terrier starts this list because its bred-in refusal to quit is the most documented of any breed here, even though the history behind it is genuinely ugly. The breed descends from bull-baiting dogs in 19th century England, later refined in dogfighting rings in the United States, specifically for gameness, the willingness to keep engaging through serious pain without disengaging. That history isn't something to celebrate, and I'm not going to pretend it is. But the temperament it produced has outlasted the practice it was built for. A 2020 American Temperament Test Society dataset shows the breed passing standardized temperament testing at 87.4%, higher than the Golden Retriever. The persistence is real. It's just rarely aimed at what people assume. The Akita doesn't get talked about enough in this context, and I think that's a mistake. Bred in the mountainous regions of northern Japan to hunt bear and boar, animals that don't go down easy, the breed developed a temperament built around committing fully once it decides something matters. Japan designated the Akita a national monument in 1931, an actual government act, not a marketing phrase. Akitas are famously selective about who they trust, and once that line gets crossed, the breed doesn't have much interest in negotiating a retreat. The Kangal, Turkey's national livestock guardian breed from the Sivas province, was developed specifically to fight wolves and bears alone, without backup, often at night. The Turkish government restricts export of purebred Kangals, which is part of why so many Kangals sold outside Turkey are actually crosses. The Cheetah Conservation Fund has used purebred Kangals in Namibia since 1994 as a non-lethal predator deterrent for livestock, and their published data shows livestock losses dropping over 80% on farms that adopted the breed. That's not a dog backing down from cheetahs and leopards. That's a documented, tracked, multi-decade field program. The Caucasian Shepherd is, frankly, terrifying in the most literal sense, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. Bred in the mountain passes between Russia and Georgia, specifically to fight wolves one-on-one, these dogs run 99 to 170 pounds, with bite force estimates between 550 and 700 psi, depending on the assessment. The Soviet Union used them to guard prison camp perimeters, documented in penal records from the era, not folklore. A dog selected across generations for solo combat against apex predators does not have a strong instinct toward retreat. The Rottweiler's refusal to back down comes from a less dramatic source than wolves or prison camps: cattle. In Rottweil, Germany, butchers used these dogs to drive cattle that weighed 10 times what the dog did. You cannot move an unwilling 900-pound animal by backing off when it pushes back. The dog has to absorb the resistance and keep applying pressure. A 2008 Journal of Anatomy study measured the breed's bite force around 328 psi, and a 2009 Journal of Veterinary Behavior paper on grip duration under resistance found Rottweilers held significantly longer than most other breeds tested. That's the cattle driving instinct, still fully intact, just pointed at a different problem now. The Cane Corso descends from Roman war dogs, the Canis pugnax, used in military campaigns from roughly the 1st century BC onward, and nearly went extinct by the mid-20th century, before Italian breeders including Giovanni Bonetti and Paolo Breber revived the line in the 1970s. What survived isn't a dog that postures and then retreats. It's a dog that evaluates first, and once it commits, generally doesn't reconsider. Trainers who work with the breed regularly describe it as one of the harder molosers to read accurately from the outside, which is part of why it's so effective as a deterrent in the first place. The Boer Bull comes from South Africa, developed starting in the 1600s by Dutch, German, and French Huguenot settlers who needed a dog capable of facing down leopards, baboons, and hyenas on isolated farmland, frequently without a human present to help. Boer means farmer in Afrikaans. Boel is Old Dutch for dog. 400 years of solving that exact problem, alone, at night, against animals that could kill it, produced a breed whose territorial confidence doesn't need encouragement. At 150 to 200 pounds, it's also simply too large for most predators to view as worth the risk, which is its own kind of deterrence. The Tibetan mastiff earns its place here for reasons that are easy to miss if you only know the breed from photos. Centuries of guarding monasteries and nomadic camps across the Himalayas at elevations above 14,000 feet, often against snow leopards, produced a breed that's nocturnal by design. Sleeping through the day, working through the night, matching the predator's own schedule rather than avoiding it. Marco Polo described the breed in 1271 as large as donkeys, a real quote that's been repeated and probably exaggerated countless times since. What's verified is the behavioral pattern, and that pattern only makes sense for an animal that was expected to actually engage, not just bark from a distance. The Belgian Malinois doesn't look like it belongs on a never backs down list. 40 to 80 pounds, lean, almost delicate next to a Boerboel or Caucasian shepherd. But Cairo, the Malinois that deployed with the SEAL team on the 2011 raid that killed bin Laden, made the breed's pain tolerance famous for a reason. The Belgian Veterinary Association published specific sedation protocol guidelines in 2018 because standard doses are frequently insufficient for the breed's elevated stress response under physical restraint. A dog that doesn't recalibrate after getting hurt doesn't have much of an off switch once it's engaged. Last one, and I think it's the most underrated entry on this entire list. The Dogo Argentino was developed in the 1920s by a doctor named Antonio Norris Martinez, who crossed roughly 10 breeds over 2 decades specifically to produce a dog capable of taking down a puma in a coordinated pack hunt. That's the literal design brief. Not guarding livestock, hunting an apex predator that can kill a grown man. The breed was banned in the UK under the Dangerous Dogs Act of 1991. And whatever you think of that legislation, it tells you the UK government looked at the breed's capability and put it in its own category. A dogo that's committed to engaging a threat isn't reading the room for an exit. It was never bred to look for one. What ties all 10 of these together isn't size, and it isn't even raw aggression. It's that somewhere in each breed's specific history, wolves, cattle, pumas, prison camps, mountain passes at 14,000 feet, retreat simply wasn't an option that got selected for. The trait got bred in because the job demanded it, generation after generation, long before any of these dogs ever slept on a couch. I don't think most people buying these breeds today fully understand what they're bringing home. The instinct is still in there. It's just waiting for a reason to show up.